Hey guys, welcome back to my agenda. Today I want to talk about the fact that I have 3 kidneys. Yes, that is accurate. I really do have 3 kidneys. Today I want to take a moment to share my story with you. It is a personal story of health, growth, and just overall accomplishment. It is about my kidney transplant. Yes, I do really have 3 kidneys. Thank God, I'm so blessed. I was transplanted in 2011, and prior to that, I spent 5 years on dialysis. Those 5 years were absolutely life-changing. Some of the worst years of my life, but then also some of the best. And I really just want to encourage someone that may be going through a similar situation. But specifically, I want to talk to those that are dealing with dialysis. I really wish it was called life-alysis, just to kind of change that mindset, because it truly can be, a life-sustaining, positive way of life, depending on how we feel and depending on how we think. Altering your state of mind can ultimately help how you feel. And I'm not saying that, your mind is a genie, and I personally like to keep things biblical just because my faith helped me through my journey just tremendously. I grew so close to God, and I know deep down in my soul that He's the only one that saved me. Yes, the doctors were there, but I do believe that, the Lord puts the right people, the right place at the right time, and ultimately all things work for our good. It's up to us, like our personal responsibility, to recognize that. So today I just want to share some light with you, some positivity, and I want to encourage you to keep going. Like, yes, being on that machine is terrible. Yes, having to get up early in the morning to go run is terrible. Yes, giving up 3 to 4 days of your week is awful. But it is keeping you alive. Do you hear that? You are alive. Like, God still has a purpose for you. Please don't ever forget that. So I don't want to act like, it was just peaches and cream, because it absolutely wasn't. I was 19 years old when I found out that my kidneys failed. I was moving. My father was in the military, so there was just a lot of transition happening. We get to our new location, and literally like a month in, we find out that my kidneys have failed. Now, this was not news to us. We did know that eventually my kidney health was, going to deteriorate. I found out when I was 13 years old that I had FSGS, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, and, we had kind of been preparing, but you can only prepare so much to be told that, hey, your only child, and then you as a 19-year-old are going to be put on dialysis to sustain your life. It was a hard transition. I had just graduated high school a year prior, watching my peers excel, go off to college, and then ultimately have babies and get married. It set me back. It put me into a deep depression. So those first years, specifically that first year, it was terrifying. It was miserable. I at times didn't want to be alive. And that's not that I was suicidal. It was just that I thought it would be easier not to have to go through what I was going through. And if you're feeling that way, I don't want you to feel ashamed of it. I just want you to get through it. I don't want you to stay there. I hope that you have, someone near to you, a friend, a loved one, the Bible, the Lord, a pet. I just hope you have something that you can cling to that gives you some hope and inspiration to keep on going. So like I said, those first years, they were really, really, really bad for me. I had moved to Georgia, and I signed a modeling contract, and I knew I was cute. The Lord has a way of humbling you, and that's something that I go to constantly throughout my story. I noticed that, let me take this off because it's making a lot of sounds, but I noticed that God is just constantly present, and He had been present through all of it, and there were times that I didn't see it, but looking back, I can clearly identify those moments when God was like, hey Jen, I'm here, this is me. And I truly believe that making me face that early in life helped me. It gave me strength that I don't even sometimes recognize I have. It gave me this relationship with God. I just know that He is real. No one can take that from me. I know that, like I said previously, people are put in your life on purpose for a reason. We have to recognize it. If you grab the smallest thing and just think about it in a positive way, I promise you, those small mindset changes will help you get through your day. I don't want to say they're life-changing, but they will help you get through your day. And that can be, maybe you had some sweet tea today. When you're on dialysis, you only get, liquid restriction depends on like your weight and height. But for me, I was limited to 500 milligrams a day. For those of you that don't know, that's like a standard water bottle from like Sam's Club. Those little bottles, I could only have one bottle a day. That was torture. But going through those early stages, it caused me severe anxiety, depression, and I think the anxiety really came from just watching my blood leave my body. It was terrifying for me. So those feelings are normal, and I don't ever want anyone to feel like they're alone in that, but I do want you to recognize it and grow past it. And I don't mean move past it, for real, grow past it. It's a terrifying experience, and I don't think it's easy at any age. For myself, I was only 19, and that was a doozy. There's so many people that I'd seen coming and going in and out of dialysis. Unfortunately, there were people that came and then sometimes passed away. It was just a very, very humbling experience, and also a growing experience, maturity-wise, I would say. So as we settled in, I started to make friends just naturally. I think also that military background, just we adapt and kind of move on. I was thankful, again, this is God, a God wink, that there were people located at our new location that had already, been at a previous location. So I knew people. It wasn't very hard. Their friends became my friends. And those things just kind of added some light activity to my life. So the first 2 years was really just like getting over the shock of like, yes, you hook up to a machine to live. And then also, just finding joy. And it's up to us to find joy no matter where we're at. Joy is a gift that God has given us. So to let anyone or anything take that from us is a disservice to Him. So I did always try to stay positive, even if I was putting on a front, It got me through. Faking the fuck sometimes, fake it till you make it. It could help. I refused to look like a patient. Over that 5-year span of dialysis, I had undergone 10 surgeries. The 10th one, actually the 9th one being my transplant, and the 10th one being not really corrective surgery, I don't know what you would call it, but I wound up catching staph, so they had to go back in. But I just honestly had endured so much over that 5-year period. I would say at around year 2, like I was previously saying, that's when I started to get my flow back a little bit. I met a guy that loved me unconditionally, which I still am like, how could you love someone that was so broken in that place and in that space, I was so unsure about everything. But things just started to look up. I realized my options as a dialysis patient. I had started off as a PD patient, but I had wound up getting peritonitis, not once, not twice, but 3 times. The 3rd time almost killed me. I wound up being allergic to the antibiotics, and just a whole lot happened. I think year 2 I actually wound up seizing, and at that point I was taken to the hospital. I was on PD at that point. That infection that I wound up getting was like the final straw. They were like, we have to start you on hemo, because if you end up getting this infection again, you're not going to survive it. So with the seizures on top of that peritonitis, they had given me a drug called Dilantin, which I don't know if I should be saying that. It is what it is. That's the drug that did me in. I wound up being severely allergic. Intravenously, that was okay, but when they sent me home, taking that medication orally, the composition of that had just really messed me up. I wound up getting something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Fun times, I tell you. I wound up having like 3rd-degree burns on the outside of my skin. The whites of my eyes bled. It messed up my bone marrow, my vision. Had severe hair loss. I think I spent a total of about 2 months in the hospital. In 2007, one of those months was in the ICU. I don't really remember a big part of 2007, the early part. I was just so drugged up and out of it, with doctors trying to save me. But I had great nursing staff. I always had doctors that were on it. And I don't know if that played into me being so young as well, but I had really great doctors that, fought for me. With that being said, I would advise anyone that is going through any type of treatment, but again, specifically dialysis, to know your stuff. Like, you have to be your own best advocate. You have to know your body. You have to know what's normal for you, and plan these things out with your doctors, with your team. And I know a lot of teams don't like to listen, but you are in charge. This is your body. This is your journey. This is your, treatment. Dialysis is not, a cure. Neither is transplant. These are two options that are available to people that have kidney disease. And a lot of people think you're cured when you have, finally get your transplant. But that's not the case at all. Our worries change at that point a bit, but it's not a cure. So that, like third, fourth year, I started traveling, calling that 1-800 number, setting up transplant, centers that would take me wherever I was going. I would typically call about 2 weeks in advance. They would pencil me in. That was actually interesting. Some places were, a lot different. Some places were the same. But it was really nice to have that option to travel and not have to be stuck. I was active. I would go for runs with my dad. Like I said, he's a military man, so he would smoke me. But it was still finding joy in little things that I could do. I hung out with my friends a lot. I wound up getting a pet. We had already previously had some dogs, but I wound up getting a new little puppy. I don't actually remember getting her because it was 2007, but she helped me through a lot. Just like a small little escape, Weirdly, someone you could talk to that doesn't have anything to say, but always willing to listen. If you have a pet, I encourage you to just enjoy their company. So it was year 3, I believe, where I went for my first kidney evaluation to see if I could be a candidate for transplant. I went, this was in Atlanta at Piedmont. You stay the night, and my father was with me. We went, they put us up in a hotel, which was connected to the hospital. I actually think it might have been the Ronald McDonald House. They fed us. You went in for labs, urine samples, those other samples. A therapy session with a psychiatrist to see, where you're at mentally, and then also a lot of other questions. So ultimately, this is a big part that I want you to take from this. If you're watching this and you're a dialysis patient, you are your own, advocate. You have to advocate for yourself. So if you've been told that you don't qualify for transplant by your dialysis center, it's not their decision. You can, go see any transplant center that you want. Those are the people that make the decision. Now, they say compliancy and all of these things have a factor, which I'm sure they do, but that local doctor can't make you stay on that machine. You have to fight for yourself. So if you're interested in transplant, that's something I encourage you to explore. It has changed my life. Like, you have no idea the difference between dialysis and then when you finally get your transplant. For those of you that, are afraid, I get it. For those of you that think you're maybe too old and don't want to take, that opportunity from someone younger, you still have a life to live as well. You have family, friends, loved ones, and it's worth it. I don't think that being older in age is something that you should use to disqualify yourself from going through surgery. So please, if you've considered and have opted out, just reconsider. It is your choice. It is a treatment plan. Now we're into year 4. Year 4, I wound up having another evaluation and same procedures. I think they're just updating records. I was double listed at that point. I think I was at Emory and at Piedmont. I had been offered to go down to Florida and Alabama, where wait times are different depending on where you go. Some places allow high-risk organs, and I do believe that Alabama and Florida are two of those places. If I'm incorrect, correct me down in the comments. But I do think that those places allow high-risk organs, so the process moves a little bit faster. So I had O negative blood, not had. I still have O negative blood. So that kind of made my wait time go up as well, because as you guys know, blood type, plays a large factor in receiving an organ, or a transfusion for that matter, which I had been transfused like probably about 12 or 13 times during this 5-year span too. But depending on where you're at, it's gonna depend on how long you have to wait. Thinking back on the process of being listed after the evaluations, there was a point in time when I was actually taken off the list based on a drug test. When I had my peritoneal tube put into my stomach, it was actually wrapped around my intestines, so I had to have another surgery because at that point I could no longer have a bowel movement, and it hurt really. My right leg hurt really bad. That's how they caught it. So because of that second surgery that I had for that peritoneal tube, they had put me on Vicodin and some other pain medication, like controlled substances that were legit and for this surgery. So they sent a letter, not to me, but they sent a letter to my local nephrologist, who presented me with the letter and was like, hey, like, what's going on? And I was just like, well, I'm taking the drugs that you prescribed to me after that surgery to deal with the pain that I was having. That's it. So that was cleared up. She took care of all of that. And I was relisted. There's so much in between, but the story's just too long to tell. But eventually we make it to year 5, and I'm kind of thriving. I have this thing going. I'm living, and I'm living well. Dialysis is now just something I do. I've been to Vegas. I've been traveling with my boyfriend. I've gone to so many different places where I'm just living what I think is a normal life. I go to dialysis, and I'm actually trying to sign up for classes to become an EMT. And I get off the phone with the fire department because that's where the classes were going to be, and my phone rings. And it is someone from Piedmont telling me, hey, we have a kidney for you. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't have any clean laundry. That was my thing. I don't have any clean laundry. I was scared just because I knew that at this point I could actually live like a full life on dialysis. Obviously dialysis was still grueling. It beat me down. There were times when I would just sleep. But for the most part, I knew that I could function. So the thought of transplant, really terrified me, going through that surgery. And then from that Dilantin episode that I had and catching that Stevens-Johnson syndrome, I was now allergic to 16 different types of antibiotics. So in my head, I was like, well, how are they going to give me a kidney without antibiotics? How is this going to work? I just, worked myself up. But my parents were actually out of the house at that point. When they got home, I was like, hey, blah, 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 called from the hospital, but I don't want to do it. Obviously, my parents weren't having that. They snatched me up, put me in the car. At this point, I was 24 years old. So it had been quite a journey, not only for me, but the people around me that, care and love me and basically had to kind of live it too. They weren't physically going through it, but, the mental anguish of watching someone you care about suffer is also something to deal with. So I get to the hospital and they're like, we have to cross and type you, take your blood and match it to the kidney. I think I got there at around 5 in the evening, and the transplant was set for the following morning. It was June 16th and my surgery took place on June 17th, early in the morning. They take a bunch of blood work, urine samples, if you produce urine at that point. I was on hemo, and I had been for quite some time since they had removed that peritoneal tube. I had been on hemo probably for about 3 years at that point. So I was no longer producing urine, but I could still go number 2. They wanted samples of everything, a mammogram. And the all nasty painstaking enema that they perform, which I wanted to refuse just because I was like, y'all don't know if this is going to be a match or not. But it wound up being a match, so glad that we did it. So I wake up and it's the big day. By wake up, I mean I'd been, woken up intermittently, like every hour on the hour, just so they could take your blood pressure, make sure. Oh, they drew labs throughout the night to make sure that my phosphorus and potassium levels hadn't gone up, because as a not transplant, I keep saying transplant, but as a dialysis patient, like the phosphorus levels and the potassium levels, those are very, very monitored while you're on dialysis, which is one pro of the transplant. But anyways, they take all these labs because they want to make sure that you can handle the surgery. So at this point, it is legit time for the surgery. I don't remember much right before because I was drugged. I remember seeing my dad. I remember seeing like my cousin, my best friend. It was just really, really, really crazy. It was quite the experience. I remember being terrified. I think my friend said that I had given her my teddy bear and asked her to like watch him. Just really strange. They give you some really good drugs. So at that point, I'm like, yes, we're doing this. And one would assume that it was going to be all gravy from there, right? So I get into surgery, and obviously I don't know what's going on. But now hearing it back, I know that, I had a pretty rough transplant. Again, just only God has kept me through all of this. The arteries from, I want to say, my urethra to the kidney, because they placed a new transplant in your pelvis, there were some issues with connecting blood flow, and they had to like tie things off differently. All of this was explained to my family and friends that were there. I was unaware. I just said some really good prayers before it was showtime, and I knew deep down again that I was going to be okay, and I have that constant comfort. Like, I know that I'm going to be okay. Like, I think I can handle anything. But after I woke up, I remember specifically my younger cousin was in the room with me. I had just been taken off of the ventilator, and I could not breathe. I thought maybe I was hyperventilating just because I had gone through this crazy procedure. Turns out I had been given too much anesthesia. The nurse was telling me to breathe through it, breathe through it, breathe through it. And I remember like grabbing my cousin's hand and just like, I can't breathe. So at that point, this is when like, the crazy, scary parts happened. And I don't want to discourage anyone from transplant. Again, I would do it 10 times over because of the quality of life I have now. But there were times during that morning coming out of surgery that I honestly thought I was going to die. And at that point, I didn't want to die. I wanted to live very much so. They started to reverse all of the medication, and I was in the most pain that I had ever been in. I was put on a morphine drip, which enhanced the effects of the anesthesia that weren't out of my system because I had been given too much. So all of these drugs were being, reversed, and I just remember screaming, like, don't let me die, don't let me die. I get a little emotional, but again, I don't want this to be, a put off or a turn off for anyone. I know that God had me through all of it, and I also think people go through things differently. Just because I had, severe reaction to anesthesia doesn't mean that that would be your journey. So just don't take one person's experience and apply it to yourself, because it could be very, very different for you. And I'm sharing my story just because it's real. It's my story. I'm hoping that it can give someone encouragement. I don't want to deter anyone from looking at transplant. I'm just telling you my truth. All right, so eventually I was better. They did what they did with the meds. And at Piedmont, I don't know how it is at other transplant facilities, but they have these classes where after your transplant, you have to go with the other transplant patients. And they sit you in this room. We were sat around like this big table. And they give you like pamphlets and packets about your meds, the dosages, what you're going to be taking, what you're allowed to eat, what you're not allowed to eat. And I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 days of classes. I don't quite recall. Because of my issues that I had after, I think I might have missed like the first day or two. I remember constantly falling asleep at these things. Luckily, my dad was there. I remember people asking the craziest questions. Not crazy like, normal transplant stuff, but for certain people, things are different and the topics could be risque. But I just remember people asking like sexual type questions, and I was just kind of laughing, I remember. I think I might have also still been on some of the meds, but overall it was a really great experience. I remember they wound up giving us a blood pressure cuff, a bag to like carry all your meds in, a thermometer. Look at me rambling like these are gifts. But if you're like a kidney patient or a transplant patient, then you know like how good one of those pill containers are. Like, they're awesome. I remember when I was hungry for the first time, I wanted a chicken sandwich and some french fries. Like, that's what I always crave after surgery is french fries. It's kind of strange. So you would think that after a transplant, this person is healed. They give you like 2 to 3 month healing period. And physically, sure, that might be the case for some. But now, instead of dialysis, there's a whole new thing and a whole new list of things that you have to worry about. For instance, the immunosuppressant drugs, we are 50% more likely, I believe, to have any sort of cancer affect us because our bodies are now being, suppressed with these drugs to keep our own immune systems from attacking this foreign body, the organ. So there's the cancer risk, which I've tested positive already for level 2 precancerous cells on my uterus, I believe. But again, I know God. So in a moment, I feel fear, but ultimately I know that God is going to handle it. There are certain foods we can't take eat because of the drugs. Like I was told grapefruit, green tea, pomegranate, and I think that's it. I know some people are okay with like the green tea. It depends again, I think, where you're transplanted. I was told certain things I couldn't do, like rake leaves, clean a fish tank, and clean a cat box. And we're not supposed to get in hot tubs. That's what I was told. Again, if this is not accurate for you, then that's fine. Just share your experience down in the comments. Please don't like blast me. Everyone is different. It turns out that the 5 years that I was on dialysis, not even the 2 full years I was on PD. I want to say maybe like the first year I was on PD. The time kind of gets a little clouded, so forgive me. One of the side effects of the immunosuppressant drugs is a memory issue. Brain fog, they call it. With me, since I was on PD and then hemo, interestingly enough, I had a perm cath in my chest the entire time. It was replaced once because there was an infection. Unfortunately, that caused, some issues. I have a clot in my heart, and then when they went in to attempt these ports in my arms, they just clotted off. One of the clots went up into my neck, which is why you can see all these veins. So that's another but God moment. God is so amazing the way that he's crafted your body to be and just to function. Like, it's a miracle. I have no direct blood flow to my heart, yet somehow here I am. It's God. It's so amazing. So the whole thing, me being on PD and then switching over to hemo, but this cath being right here that whole time, which was a direct line to my heart, which allowed blood flow, that whole time, that, interference with that cath being in my heart, it caused a clot. But because that line was in there, I still had, blood flow. That entire time, my body was building all these different back roads of how to get blood to my heart. So as you can see, like, I have some really pronounced veins, and that's just my body fighting to be alive. Is really amazing. Okay, so look at me now. Other than me telling you the things that are wrong with me and you seeing some veins, scars, which I used to be really ashamed of, but those are like my battle scars. Like, I've been through some shit, man, and I'm alive. Other than, some physical things, I'm great. Like, thank God that I don't look like what I've gone through. I just really hope that this encourages somebody that is going through it to keep pushing, to not give up, because again, your story has not yet been written. Like, God still has air and breath in your lungs. That means there's still a purpose. If you guys have any questions, comment down below. I'll gladly answer them, maybe in another video. If you're interested in more content like this, or like specific, instances that I've talked about, whether it be PD, hemo, traveling while on dialysis, like, I'll gladly make a video about that for you guys. Be encouraged, don't give up, and just continue to fight to live. Like, everyone has a cross to bear. This is yours. I just hope you find strength through it. Thank you guys for being here.